with us in studio here in Chesapeake in Hampton Roads. We're finally back in town. And with us now live in studio is House of Delegates member Glenn Davis. Glenn Davis also a candidate for lieutenant governor. There's three people in the lieutenant governor's race for the Republican nomination for lieutenant governor. State Senator Jill Vogel, Fauquier County. State Senator Bryce Reeves from Stafford, Fredericksburg area, and House of Delegates member Glenn Davis. Recent polls have shown Davis and Jill Vogel in virtually a dead heat. It's going to be very, very close. And Davis coming in this race from nowhere to be right there. And if we told him when he started this campaign 18 months ago, well, a long time ago, right?
Yeah, it was. I can't believe we just
18 months ago.
Well,
15 months.
Well, April 1st of last year, actually, so about 12 or so. We
All right,
came out of session and hit it.
If I would have told Glenn Davis 12 months ago that when he started this campaign, that 12 months into it, he'd be tied for the lead, he'd be very, very happy with that because you came basically from nowhere. You were an afterthought, and now you're right there. Now, we got a lot to talk about today in the next 20 minutes, Glenn Davis. I want to start with you made a pretty bold call the other day on a piece of tax legislation from Senator Vogel saying that if she follows through on it, you will get out of the race and endorse her for state senate, right?
Well, so what we've done.
So explain that.
Sure. So I've always said from April 1st last year, the most important issue we have facing us is tax reform. And at a recent forum we had last week, Jill Vogel got up and said the same thing. And I'm day late, dollar short, but I'm glad she's come around. And she said the most important thing facing the Commonwealth is tax reform. And she's been touting this Senate bill that she's put in. I think it's the only tax reform bill she's put in 4, 5, 6 years. I don't know. But it was Senate Bill 1545. And she's been saying that's how she's going to help the taxpayers of Virginia. This bill was a bill to give some of the surplus back to the taxpayers after a budget year. And it was probably very well intended. And I went through that bill to see what Jill's version of tax reform is. And going through it, I realized two things. One, this bill is kind of Hillary's version of tax reform. It actually takes more money from working families to give tax refunds to others greater than what they owed and paid to begin with. It's that version of
earned income tax credit.
Well, no, it's not even the earned income tax credit. It really is it's refundable tax credits. It's a redistribution of wealth is truly what it is. The same thing Hillary kind of wanted to do. You give people refundable tax credits in excess of what they paid, so they get a refund in excess of what they owed. They take it from people like you and I and the working family to give it to others. The second thing this bill does, John, is it increases the marriage penalty. Now, this is something that, as Republicans, we hold sacred. I know I find it completely out of bounds to have a marriage penalty. I've always hated it at the federal government level. And Jill exacerbates it here with her bill, Senate Bill 1545, by going and saying that if you are divorced, if you are single, you get the full amount of the tax credit. But if you're married, each of you only get half. That's not what we do as Republicans. So what I've put out there, since tax reform is the most important thing, and obviously one of us doesn't know what we're talking about, if I'm wrong on Jill's bill, I will get out of the race today. I will get out of the race if I'm wrong on Jill's bill. But if Jill is wrong on this, and her bill really does increase the marriage penalty and redistribute wealth by taking more from working families to give it to people in excess of what they owed and paid in taxes, then she should get out. We can't afford to have someone who does not understand tax reform at this level in charge of tax reform. And God knows if this bill does, and I believe it does say exactly what I'm talking about, the Democrats will have her for lunch. So I think we need to get down to it, and I've offered that if I'm wrong, I will get out. Because it's that important of an issue in 2018. We are not going to make Virginia number one again for business and job growth if we don't reform the tax code. And we don't need to have someone reforming the tax code that does not know what they're talking about. And obviously, when Jill or I, one of us has it wrong.
All right, so you're looking for Senator Vogel to come back and to dispute your analysis of her tax bill. What tax bill is that? SB
1545.
SB 1545 for the layman out there, listener. That means Senate Bill 1545. And what Glenn Davis has challenged now is he's saying that, okay, Senator Vogel, the way I analyze this is a redistribution of income, because part of it says that you will be eligible for a refund in excess of what you paid, which is an earned income tax credit by another name. If you are due a refund of $1,000 because you paid $1,000 in and you get $1,500, that $500 came from somebody else.
What it is, John, is so she calculated this very simplistically. She said that we're going to take a certain percent of the budget surplus and give it back to the taxpayers, and that makes sense. And but the way we're going to do it is we're going to take that amount of money, and let's say it's $1 million, John, that we're going to, I say give back, she says redistribute, but regardless. And there's, let's say 100 tax returns or 1,000 tax returns, right? So you do the math. But let's say the amount of money when you do the math is $100 per person, and that it comes down to. A person that only paid in $10 and only owed $10 still gets that $100. It's not $100 on average. It's $100 per person regardless of what you paid. And so if someone only owed $10 and they got $100 back, they're actually making $90, and paying taxes shouldn't be a profitable enterprise. But that $90 came from someone, and it came from a working family who arguably should have gotten $140 back, $150 back, maybe even $190 back. But they only got their 100, and as opposed to getting their full amount because their money had to go give it to someone else that never owed it and paid.
They paid $200 in, they got $100 back. Somebody else paid $10 in, got the same $100 back.
This is where
that's a redistribution of wealth.
Yeah, it is, John. This is where details matter. I've always said, we need Republicans that can not just deliver a message. We need Republicans that can deliver on a message. I don't need someone that can talk about tax reform. I need someone that can do tax reform. And that's why I'm running for lieutenant governor. I know that we can make Virginia #1 again for business and job growth. I've always had that 4-point plan from day one. And one of those important points was tax reform. I've been working on it since 2014 when I first walked into the House of Delegates. I was named Freshman Legislator of the Year that year because of my work on tax reform for small business owners. And now I've got a senator late to the game that says she's doing this, and she's the one that can make a difference. And honestly, if she's got this right, I'll get out. But if she's messed this up as bad as I think she's messed it up, and this is what she's going to do going forward, and hurt married couples and working families, then I think I'm definitely the guy that should be working on tax reform in the future.
All right, now, we're with Glenn Davis. He's live in studio. He's running for lieutenant governor. You can follow him on Twitter at
DellGDavis.com. Well, Del G. Davis is the handle.
All right, Del G. Davis on Twitter. You're also the first one to put out a negative ad, and it was on video on social media. I'll call it a negative ad, where you referred to the front runner, Jill Vogel, as Jillery.
Well, look.
Jillery. Come on.
Well, look. Negative ad, really?
Kind of funny.
John, the whole video is about this tax bill. What I said is this tax bill that Jill put out there would make Hillary Clinton blush. That's true. There's no negative. This is about Jill's legislation.
So you gave fact in your...
Oh, heck yeah. If anyone goes to that video, all they're going to do is see me talking about Jill's piece of legislation. Now, I am proud of my legislation. I will stand behind my legislation. I'm running on my legislation, not from my legislation. If Jill is going to run from her legislation, it's not negative for me to put her feet back on the carpet. You don't get to drop bills and then run away from them when you realize that it didn't do what I thought it was going to do. That's not negative. And don't think the Democrats aren't going to pick up on this too. So at the end of the day, John, I think I've had 6 races. I've never attacked anyone personally, and I challenge anyone to find someone that I've attacked personally. I don't believe in it. I don't like negative campaigning. I've stopped my consultants from doing stuff like that in the past. I don't do it. Now, I mentioned Jillery because, yes, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it was because using those refundable tax credits in that manner was exactly off Hillary Clinton's playbook. And if me going after her policy that Jill's put out there is problematic, then, I think we had a problem with our party because that's exactly what we're supposed to do as our party. That's how we get people under our tent, is to talk about what it is we believe in and what we do. And I'll stand behind mine every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
All right, so are you going to stand behind calling Senator Vogel Jillery or not?
I'm going to stand behind her tax bill is taken from Hillary Clinton's playbook, and I will stand behind that. If the whole tongue-in-cheek thing she didn't care for is fine, but I will stand behind that her refundable tax credits and the way she did them to give money, take money from working families to those that never paid it, deserved it, or needed it, is offensive. Well, I don't know what Joel's problem is. She dropped the bill, not me.
All right, now let's get to a text here. This is from Colonel Mike, number 2 in Virginia Beach. Says, if you're Mr. Tax Reform, compliment, how can you get rid of the unlawful car tax?
Boy, the unlawful car tax. Are we talking the same property tax?
Just the car tax,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Well, so I think there's a couple of avenues to go down. Our tax code, the majority of it was, from the 50s and 60s, John. And since then, we've become more of a service-based economy. It's what I tell people. There was a time, when you and I were younger, John, we were, high school and college. If you wanted Microsoft Office, right, you went to the store, you bought it in a box, and you may have paid $100 for it, and you pay taxes on it. Now, you go on the internet, you get Office 365, you don't pay any taxes, and because it's a service, it's not a tangible product anymore. So that just goes to the whole tax system has changed completely. I think we need to have a complete overhaul of our tax code in Virginia, recognizing we're a service-based economy, recognizing some of the challenges local governments have, and honestly create a system that allows us to have some local governments, as small businesses grow, succeed, flourish, because they're the ones that actually create 70% of all the jobs in the Commonwealth. And I think we can do that. John, I've always said, when he talks about the car tax, it also hits businesses, obviously, businesses with vehicles. And you in business, you also have those business property taxes. If you can imagine, and John, you do this, you pay taxes every year on every computer, every desk, every microphone, everything used in your business, whether you bought it 2 years ago or 5 years ago, you pay taxes on over again. So how crazy is that you're paying taxes on every piece of equipment, and if you upgrade your equipment, you're now going to pay more taxes just because you upgraded that mic to the newest mic on the market or the newest computer on the market. So I think we definitely need to upgrade our tax code, and that's exactly what we need to do in 2018 with the new administration. Well,
there's no question we need tax reform in Virginia. Let's get to, there's one gubernatorial tax plan out there. All right, There's 5, how many candidates, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candidates, one plan out there that's specific, and that's Ed Gillespie's 10% across the board state income tax cut for Virginians. Average family of 4 in Virginia saving $1,300. How do you stand on that?
I think it's great. We haven't had a tax cut for individuals in since 1972. I applaud Ed for doing it to actually help the working families. I also applaud Ed for understanding what a lot of elected officials don't understand. He didn't go after the corporate income tax rate. There's hardly any businesses in Virginia that pay corporate income taxes because most of them are LLCs or S corps or sole proprietors, and at that point all the taxes flow through to their own individual tax returns. And most C corps in Virginia don't pay taxes or much in taxes to Virginia. So I applaud Ed on that. The big piece of Ed's tax bill, though, John, the one I think that's going to make the ultimate difference, is when he put that he's going to work with local governments to help get rid of things like the B poll tax and the business property tax, which and property tax, which would be the car scenario. But here's the thing, John, I spent 5 years in city government. I know the challenges and the pain points when the state gets involved in trying to change, modify, or eliminate taxes where the funds actually go directly to local governments for things like fire and police and teachers and not to the state. I can be a huge part of that reform at the local level to help put the final piece of Ed's plan together, if it's our governor, so we can actually work with those local governments and get rid of those onerous taxes at the local level without hurting local governments, because that really is going to be the tremendous impact of his tax plan. As much as that 10% cut's huge, what's even larger is if he can make good on getting rid of things like the B poll tax at the local government level.
Okay, the B poll tax is one of these taxes that everybody hates. If you own a business, you hate it, number one, because you don't like paying it. You don't see the value of it. It seems like a shakedown. But also, a lot of local governments come into local businesses, knock on their door. You're doing business in there, and they do, in fact, shake you down, right? They try to get the money right. They want a check. They want a credit card. They don't take no for an answer. it doesn't feel good to people. It's a horrible tax.
Well, it's a horrible tax. I mean, I don't know if I'd classify it as a shakedown. They're due every year on a certain date. Now, if you don't pay it on a certain date, they do kind of come out and want it. Here's the problem with the BPOL tax that a lot of, non-business owners don't understand, and government definitely doesn't understand. It's not, you pay that tax on top line revenue whether you make money or not, right? So if you do $1 million in sales, but your cost of goods and overhead was $1.5 million, you as a business lost $500,000, but you still got to pay tax on that $1 million of top-line revenue, and we understand that. The problem is a business, if they want to expand, let's say they want to build another division. We all know that most businesses fail in the first 2 years, or it takes 2 years to turn around to make money. It's the same thing on new divisions. So if I as a business owner say, I'm going to go start another division, I'm not going to make money. I'm not going to make a profit in that division for 2 years. I may do $500,000. Let's say I do $1 million in revenue, but I'm going to lose money in that division. Not only do I have to go make sure I find money, get a loan, I do what I need to do to cover that loss for 2 years while I'm building it. Right. I have to go find money, get a loan to cover the BPOL tax on that top line revenue for those 2 years, because I'm responsible to paying taxes on top line, even though that division is losing money.
Right.
So the BPOL tax disincents
that's a real
businesses.
issue. It makes no sense to pay taxes on top line revenue. If you own a business, you can have top line revenue and still be losing money, or making very little. And so to pay taxes on revenue is asinine.
Yep.
And it's just basically a way for government to get more money out of you.
It is.
That's why everybody that's in business hates that thing. We have 4 more minutes. I want to get to the political reality of your race, Glenn Davis, and then I want to get to Cole. Political reality, you're right there. Polls are showing extremely close, lots of undecided people. But everybody knows that Senator Vogel, who I believe is right now still the front runner, has a lot of money, unlimited resources. You know, she drops $1.5 million in TV ads in the final 3 weeks. Neither yourself or Reeves can respond to that. What happens? How do you win in that environment when you potentially are going to get annihilated with TV ads in the final 2 weeks of the campaign?
Well, John, there was a time years ago where you could buy a race. I truly believe that. I mean, having unlimited resources to drop a mail piece that says whatever you want to say. I'm the leader on tax reform in the final week and, whatever. There used to be a time when you couldn't combat that. But we're in a different time now. We're in a time of social media and online opportunities. We saw a lot of things happen. You remember, Scott Taylor's race. I mean, and what percent did Scott get, outspent? And look at the other races.
He got outspent 10-1.
Right.
And he beat Randy Forbes by 10.
Right. So I think people are realizing it's still, a little bit of an uphill climb, but you can beat people because there's a lot smarter of an electorate out there. It's a lot easier for them to get the truth. If a mail piece drops, the voters aren't just going to take it for granted. They're going to go in, they're going to do a little bit of research, or we can find them on social media, and we can find them on their cell phones. And honestly, you've seen Mellow Yellow. I mean, we've got over 42,000 miles on Mellow Yellow going around the Commonwealth, sharing our message of making Virginia #1 again for business and job growth. And I don't care how many mail pieces my opponent wants to drop saying that she's going to make Virginia #1. If you don't have a plan to do it, or God forbid, you have a plan that actually hurts working families, it's going to come to light. So right now, we're, right like you said, all the polls have showed us actually leading or tied for the lead. We know that she's going to drop $500,000 plus. It's not going to be a surprise. It's not going to be an October surprise. We know it's coming. We know what is coming on. And so we're already getting geared up for it. And, can you still buy elections in this day and age? Maybe, but we're not going to let it happen. And I think the people are looking to truly have a difference made in 2018 with the right administration. And we know, one, that we can not only make a difference, make Virginia #1 for business job growth, but two, as important, we can help get this ticket elected, because it doesn't matter unless we get a governor and an attorney general that are Republican as well. And being from Hampton Roads, I can make that happen.
Okay, so you sound pretty confident that even with the onslaught of ads coming in the final month, you guys are prepared for that. You figure you have other ways to get your message out in order to compete.
We do. I mean, we know what she's going to come with. I mean, she started out with a bathroom piece. She's got a gun piece. She's got a tax piece. I don't know what her final stance is going to be that she's going to actually try to win the election on. But we're running. We started out making Virginia #1 again for business and job growth. That is where I was on April 1st of last year when I started. That was where I was in Christmas, and that's where I am today. And that's where I will be on June 13th. And that message is resonating. The polls show it's resonating, and that exactly is who I am. It's not Glenn saying something to get elected. It's Glenn. And like I've always said, if that message didn't resonate back in April of last year, I wasn't going to change my message. I just wasn't running. And we're running, we're winning on that message, and we're ready to bring it home.
Okay, one more minute. You made an impassioned speech on revitalizing the coal industry in Southwest Virginia on the House in the Well when I was there for the veto day. You got 1 minute. Sum that up. And exactly 1 minute, I got to go.
So the governor's done everything he can to kill the coal business out in Southwest Virginia. And that coal business truly can put Virginia back on the map, specifically Southwest Virginia. You've heard me go about my trip to Estonia. You've heard about MIT. There's research being done to replace silicon in computer electronics and solar panels with powdered coal. We need to make sure that we keep those mines open and keep those people working, not just to help feed their families, but because this research we can bring to Virginia. And we can be the Silicon Valley of the 21st century in Southwest Virginia. But if those mines get shut down and that coal industry gets shut down, when that opportunity for powdered coal to be used in products that it's not being used for today becomes commercializable, it won't be in Virginia. It'll be in places like West Virginia or Pennsylvania. So we need to keep those mines open. We need to continue using coal. We need to use it now for electricity and heat. But also, we're bringing that technology and that research from MIT to Virginia, which will not only allow us to continue doing energy with it, but also start a 21st century coal industry. And John, that's why I'm running, and that's how we're going to make Virginia #1 again.
Okay, we're out of time. For more information on the Davis for Lieutenant Governor campaign, Glenn R. Davis.
www.davis4lg.com.
Davis4lg.com. Glenn, thanks for being with us.
John, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
It's going to be a very, very close race, and we're going to be following it here in the next few weeks. Thanks for being with us. I will be right back.